What's going on, everybody? Welcome. It is April 26, 2024. I'm Eve, and I'm joined with our good brother, Irvin. Irvin, are you there? Can you hear us?
I am here, and I am right here. How you doing, Eve? Thank you for having me on.
Welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I'm happy to have this conversation with you, and it is timely AF because I hadn't actually planned on having a conversation with you, at least on any platforms, as much as we've had just conversation in general. But you being a person who's very knowledgeable in your field, and me being just Eve, and I'm not the not the authority on things, you guys, right? um I try to I try not to cap on these apps, right? And
Right.
as Irvin Irvin's been doing this thing for Sexual Assault Awareness Prevention Month, which is April, if you guys didn't know. And we thought that this would be a pretty good conversation for you guys. So welcome, Irvin. They're unfamiliar with you because I've never had you on. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely, Eve. My name is Irvin Burton, for those who don't know me. I'm actually a self-employed uh, personal trainer and martial arts instructor. And I own a business here where I live in sunny, lovely Los Angeles, California. And I am also a self-defense instructor. And the two are not actually interchangeable, which we'll get a little bit into on the broadcast here. But yeah, I am big on prevention of anything from sexual assault to violence, especially to our Black community being targeted and everything by so many different people. So I try to get my knowledge out there as much as possible and let people know how they can protect themselves against just about any type of attack you can name. So that's why I'm
That's
here.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for joining us. And thank you for this conversation because, well, I think that in this day and age, there's a lot of confusion about what is harm and how people are harmed. I really think that this conversation can go in a lot of different directions. So, uh, to my creative juices that are on your screen right now, fight back or perish. I think that that is really the conversation when we're talking about self defense because it's either going to be you or not you, right? It just kind of depends on where you fall in the pecking order. I'd like Black people to choose themselves, choose yourself, choose us, uh, over anybody else who wants to harm us, right? But in real time, like Irvin just told you guys, we're being attacked on a bunch of different fronts, and if you're not ready, then you will fall victim to the harm. So definitely, I wanted this conversation because, well, y'all know what's been going on with me, and in real time, I've had to, again, explain the harm. So, Irvin is familiar with how I like to do things, or at least, let's try to define some things. So, Irvin, when we're talking about sexual harassment or sexual assault, what is that? Can you maybe give us a definition of what we're talking about?
Yes, absolutely. Sexual assault is actually a blanket term, what we call a blanket term for any type of unwanted, whether it be sexual contact, um, revenge porn, rape, which involves penetration. It's basically a blanket term to describe any way that you use to dominate someone and force them into some type of uh, submission, right? And to use your power dynamics, as we see on the screen there, against someone in a sexual manner. So when people say sexual assault, this is a blanket term. Um, Whereas the other terms, like, for example, rape, these are part of sexual assault. So if you can imagine, uh, for lack of a better analogy, if you can imagine a file cabinet, sexual assault would be the file cabinet. and everything in the filing cabinet would be, rape and sexual violence and revenge porn, all those things. And so it's important to understand those definitions because words get thrown around a lot, and it can get messy. It can really get messy.
No, it really can. In real time, I've had to. Do you remember? Will you Google that for me? Or do you remember Ask Jeeves? Or do you just remember when people acted like the internet wasn't this big ass dictionary or encyclopedia of information? And then, they'd ask you something, and it's like, yeah, I can Google that. No, in real time, people were telling me that revenge porn wasn't revenge porn. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I, let me just Google that really quick. And then I Google it, and it's actually a lot bigger than what I thought it was initially. People told me that, oh no, revenge porn is when someone takes pictures that you didn't know were being taken. And it's like, no, but I do think that that is a part of revenge porn, right? Like, I think that that
Mhm.
is inclusive, but I don't think that that is exclusive. Like, I don't think that's only it. So, starting with defining what we're talking about so people aren't getting confused. I quick Google search physical conduct, verbal conduct, nonverbal conduct, and then quid pro quo are the four big umbrellas inside of sexual harassment. And then really it can go in a bunch of different directions. And in the age of Me Too, feminism, womanism, and just people thinking that masculinity is toxic, it can get very messy. People thinking that something is harassment or sexual harassment when it's just regular harassment, or people feeling uncomfortable calling it sexual harassment. That there's levels. And I do think that the nuances matter when we're having a serious discussion like this. So I am glad that we're starting with the basics. And I guess let's start with self-defense. As a self-defense instructor, do you find that you have more women who need your services or want your services, or are you finding that your fellow men are wanting to defend themselves? Where is that?
I'd say honestly, it's probably, interestingly enough, it's probably about 60-40, but with women. And what I find the women want is they want the information, which is very important. So they want to know, how they can protect themselves before things get to a certain point. So they want to know, hey, for example, I do a lot of seminars with young women off to college. And what they really want is they want to know, the parents who come to me say, hey, listen, my daughter's on her way to college. She's going to be out there alone. I want her and her friends usually to know what to do when they're out there, understand how to handle themselves. This is the same with like yoga studios. This is the same with real estate offices that I've worked with who are owned by women. These are a lot of different places. What's interesting is the men, they enjoy the workout portion. Um, you know, he's really the men are really like, oh, you mean we get to hit mitts and hit the bag and do push-ups, you know? And so they kind of go more for the workout aspect, and being able to defend themselves is really something that they really say, oh, okay, hey, this is kind of a secondary thing. But so again, my dynamic my customer base is about 60-40, with women being more often than not. And I also find that the women more often than not enjoy private training as opposed to group training as well, because they're usually kind of nervous working with a group because they're worried about looking embarrassed, or maybe there's a because I get a lot of small women. One of my clients, she's like 5'1", and
Oh,
here I am, this 6 foot tall guy, and they get kind of nervous, but then they talk to me and they say, well, can I just get private lessons from you? Things like that. So it's a little easier for them to come in and want to do privates, because then they can feel a little bit more comfortable. Like, okay, he's not gonna try to. I don't see him as a drill instructor now. I see him as my trainer, so to speak. But yes, that's the gist of it. 60-40, women being the number one.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. In real time, people who have been following me for a little while, might be familiar with the things that I do to keep myself in shape. And I think that is a beginning. It's a foundation of self-defense. If you can't run a mile, you are gonna get cut.
Exactly.
It's not funny, you guys. I'm not laughing at people who've been harmed. I am laughing at what I've seen. Let's laugh at me for a little bit, you guys. I like to pretend that I'm Batman from time to time, and inside of my Batman. Just kidding. Let's turn that audio off because we don't want any copyright strikes. And laugh. Let's laugh, you guys. It's okay to laugh. We can do things and learn from each other. We can push each other. I have not been able to do a pull-up since I started gaining weight, Irvin. It's been pretty bad. It's been pretty sad, actually. But I take these videos to kind of show women that you can do as much as you want to do if you want to. If you push yourself, if you have a supportive, if you got support in your background, right? I don't know if I saw one of the trainers in the gym gives me a hard time, and I think that those little pushes, they help me not fall on my face because.
Right.
It's like, people watching can't fall.
Yeah. Yep.
But I get it, wanting the one-on-one because you feel like your instructor really hears you. If you have like a specific concern, you can target that specific concern. In a group, you might feel like someone picks up the skill faster than you. So then maybe you start feeling inadequate. And I completely understand all the ins and outs for why someone would want, a one-on-one versus a group. But I think that having both of those options available for people, that makes you inclusive. It makes you, someone who's available. Some people in your field are very one way. You have to be like this. And if you don't be like this, then I can't train you because you're not, but when people say that they don't know how to protect themselves, maybe they're already being super vulnerable, right?
Right. Yeah. They tend to, I live in a suburban town, and they really tend to call me when something happens as opposed to taking the initiative ahead of time. I remember some couple years back, I did a seminar for a real estate office, and I'd been calling that real estate office for probably a good 6 months, and they kept kind of pushing me off, and then a realtor got attacked, and here it was on a Sunday night at 9 p.m. and they were calling me like, "Hey, listen, one of our realtors were attacked. Could you do a seminar for us?" I mean, not to disparage the realtor who got attacked, but yeah, they have this thing, that don't say realtor, just say realtor. So worked with a lot of realtors. So they have this thing about that because it's like the scare factor, right? It's the idea that they're just, okay, we don't have to worry about that right now. There's nothing going on. Then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, something's happening. What was that number? What was that guy? Where's he at? And it was, and I remember that night well because I was with my girlfriend at the time, and we were just kind of, watching Netflix, and like I look at the number and I'm like, why is this real estate office calling me on Sunday night at 9 p.m.? Like that doesn't even what?
But they need you.
They needed me. Yeah, exactly. It was like Batman, like you said, it
Right.
was like throwing the back signal up. It's like, hey, we know it's Sunday at 9, but we need you.
No,
So
that's impressive, having an on-call availability and then people knowing that they can call you and that you're there and not that you're just always around, right? I'm not saying that he's just free, he doesn't have anything to do. No, I'm not saying that, but I am saying that people know your work ethic, know that you really do these things that you're out here purporting to do, and training for everybody. So if you got in real time, then maybe you do need some Tiger Crane martial arts and fitness in your toolbox to keep you safe. So I like that, that in real time when something's happening, people are, well, they are reactionary, but they're trying to be proactive, right? And
right.
that's, I think that matters, right? Wouldn't you say that proactivity is better than reactivity?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. That's why I really like it when people come to me long before anything happens. I had a guy during the pandemic come approach me for lessons, and he was a doctor, a Black American, uh, like us, right? And he was worried. He's like, hey, listen, I'm 50 years old. I'm a doctor. I do work out, but I need to know how to defend myself because I don't know what to expect out here, and I'm not in the best of shape that I mean, I'm not in the same shape as like an 18-year-old who's like, twice my size. And I want to know how to deal with that. And I just told him, I said, well, come down to, come on down, my friend. And we had a little conversation, and he was there for about 6 months. And yeah, and I would say in three, I mean, we went from total novice to, you know, um, proficiency. I don't like to say expert, because that's a life journey, but proficiency. I mean, we worked on him, and he said, he was like, man, I'm glad I came here because I feel so much better. I feel so much safer now. I feel like I can really defend myself. And he told me, he gave me a great compliment. He said I was the best instructor he ever had, because what I didn't know at the time was that he actually had trained multiple martial arts from karate to jeet kune do to whatever. And he told me, he said, all those guys, I learned more from you in 3 months than I learned from them in a year and a half. And by the way, he only did private lessons. That's all he never did anything that was um he never did a group class. He only did private lessons. Like, that's all he ever wanted, that's all he ever did. And that was that. So that really, that was a humbling experience, and it kind of made me really see, like, wow, you know, this is the kind of thing that you can put out there as an instructor and help change someone's life. So yeah, it's really great.
I like that. In real time, and also I like that you understand and appreciate, you respect the delineation conversation, right? Because that's so big right now, you guys. Black people can't help Black people unless we're of the same lineage. No, that's not real. That's not real. What is real is that melanated people are all fighting this really big nasty monster called racism, white supremacy, and people like Irvin are out here trying to help us protect ourselves from them and shit from everything. I'm not going to
Right.
say black crime right now, but just whatever it is, you might not be in the best shape of your life, but you know that the shit could hit the fan at any minute, and you need help. And now is probably the best time versus after the shit hits the fan. Um, in real time, my man, we have this conversation. It used to be a duel in my home where I want to go run, and it's like 5 o'clock in the morning because it's a good time for me to run when the children are still asleep. Nobody is really needing me to do anything. Um, But then in real time, he's like, if you don't have Hush Puppy, you don't have your power tool. If you don't have A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, then no, you are not running at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, at 10 o'clock. There's like 7 different o'clock hours that he's telling me that I can't go running. I'm like, Irvin,
Rightfully so.
man must be
Rightfully so.
fat. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yep. Yep.
But in real time, he would always supplement this nag with news articles. And you guys, there is a kidnappable range and there is a kidnappable time. And I'm right in that fucking range. Like I'm under the height. You know, I'm short. And then I'm under the weight, because if they can just pick your ass up, somebody can just pick you up and just take you. What are you supposed to do about that? And then what if it's 3 guys against me? What am I supposed to do against that? But hopefully be faster than them. You know, that it gets very scary. So again, having conversations with people who are knowledgeable about defense, preventative measures, and then just with what women go through, just being women. He's not a feminist, you guys, and I'm not a feminist either. But I do know that men are not having to have the same worry about being picked up and carried off as much as if
That's
you're
right.
in range, you might.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's actually funny. You know, I want to mention 2 things you talked about running away first. You know, you're so right about being able to run away from your attacker, because one time I was actually jogging around my block, and it was about a mile. The place I was living at the time, it was about a mile around, because it was a big townhome complex. And yeah, and I had just finished my 3rd lap, which was a 3-miler, and these guys got into a car. These guys who were in a car just pulled out in front of me and got out the car. And I remember I just outran them. You know, I mean, it was 4 guys, and I was just like, okay, no, you know, I'm not ready to. I'm not gonna sit around and see what you guys are, what you guys have planned. I'm getting out of here. So I was able to run away and outrun them. And you know, that was a big deal for me, because who knows what they had in store? They could have had knives. They could have had, you know, guns on them. I mean, what they were looking for, I have no idea, but I wasn't going to stick around and find out because it was too aggressive. It was too sudden. And I was in the zone, you know, mentally. And yeah, I was just like, okay, I'm out. And I was gone. But the second thing that you mentioned, the last thing that you mentioned, about getting like picked up and guys having to worry about different things than women, and you're right. You know, it's interesting because for the most part, I find that men have more to worry about in terms of like physical violence. You know, getting, you know, punched and kicked and hit and jumped and everything in between. Whereas I find and this is again just my experience. I haven't read statistics on this, but I think women have more to deal with when it comes to sexual violence. And I think that's where like some of the concepts of, for example, you know, like, oh, women's self-defense class, you know, well, I don't teach like women's self-defense. I teach self-defense, right? Because the only difference that I see is in the scenario that's presented, right? Most of the, you know, most of the scenarios I've seen, because I don't think I mentioned this, but I used to work as a bouncer, and you know, and security guard, and yeah, I've seen, you know, date rape Dave. I've seen, you know, I use that term kind of loosely here because and because a lot of people think date rape is just like you're on a date and somebody slips you a Mickey, but sometimes it could just be the simple fact that, hey, you know, this woman's a little intoxicated and he's just kind of leading her away so that he could do something, like, you know, so he could do what he wants with her. And I've seen that happen. I mean, I saw a guy, for example, I saw a guy when I was working as a bouncer. I saw a guy actually get close to this guy's sister, who was a little intoxicated, and he wasn't paying attention for whatever reason, and he got her in the car. And and I'm just thinking, whoa, and there was nothing I could do at that point because they were already driving away. All I saw was the door close and then them drive off. And the brother was chasing after the car, and I was just like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
like
man.
this is bad. The good news is that I ended up running into her again later. So she was okay. I don't know if anything actually happened to her, but she was alive at the very least, which was good. But those kind of things can happen, and they're very important to address, and they're very important. It's very important you pay attention to those kinds of things because it's not just somebody who slips you a Mickey, or anything else. And then to top that off, to add insult to injury, a lot of times it's someone It's not some random stranger. 70% of sexual assaults happen from someone that they've either known, that they've or like an acquaintance, for example. It could be someone they've been intimate with in the past. Could be somebody, and it could be somebody who they're intimate with at the moment. It gets pretty ugly when you look at the statistics, and they say, I think the exact stats is 1 in 3 women will be sexually assaulted in their lifetime. And all I can say is that I have at least a dozen or so women friends, and out of all those women that I'm friends with, that's about the right stat. 1 in 3 of them have been sexually assaulted, whether it's been in childhood by family members, or whether it's just been by somebody they knew. And it's really sad to watch the aftermath, because I've actually have been called when that happens to help with the police process and the legal process. Not because I'm a lawyer, I just want to put that out there. I'm not because I'm a lawyer, but because a lot of times they don't feel comfortable going down there to the police station, being surrounded by men, being grilled about everything. It's very uncomfortable experience for them. And having someone who they trust, i.e. me, go down there with them, they feel better about it. And they feel more secure about being able to sit back and have somebody like me sit there and say, oh, okay, what's the problem with this, what's that, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it gets pretty ugly when you look at the statistics and look at who it happens to. And like I said, I've seen it on one end where it's been a friend of 5 years who's just kind of, one case that he was helping a girl move and got her to the house and then basically locked her in. Here they had been friends for 5 years, and suddenly, all of a sudden, boom. And then there was another situation where a woman was actually was on a date with a guy, and he wanted to go further than she wanted to go. And same thing, he was like, no, I'm gonna do this. And so, and this was a guy that she had met through mutual friends. So this wasn't just some random dating app or some random guy that approached her on the street either. This was like, hey, we know this guy, why don't you go out with him? He seems like a nice guy. Oh, okay, yeah, sure. He seems nice. He seems attractive. He seems this. And she called me up 11 o'clock at night, like, oh my gosh, this guy tried to rape me, and it was really bad. But anyway, yeah, I get on my soapbox there a little bit, but
no, thank you for the examples, because in real time, people do that. They try to invalidate someone's trauma or someone's harm because they don't see it the same way, or they haven't defined it the same way. And that the one that you said, the date rape thing, people thinking that it's, you get roofied and then someone tries to take advantage of you. No, you could be out having a good fucking time, and then you don't have any control over yourself because of how good of a time you put on yourself. So now it's like a self-inflicted wound, and then women will feel like their trauma or harm is invalidated because they did it to themselves. But did they do it to them? Like, I don't know if somebody rapes himself, or if someone, says no and then doesn't get taken seriously, but because their inhibitions are lowered because they've been drinking or because they've been doing whatever the fuck they've been doing, that's supposed to make it okay. As much as I feel like if we're both adults in the situation, if you know that I've had too much to drink, then, easy ass or or not. I don't know. If you're really feeling her, she'll probably give it to you sober, like that conversation
Yes.
potentially happen. Maybe
Yeah.
she'll be
Yeah.
to give it to you. You didn't take advantage of her, when she was drunk that night. But I've had friends in college, similar situation, like you just said. Not that
Mm.
they were raped, drugged, but that they were taken advantage of because they had done too much that night, and then they get told that you did too much that night. You did it to yourself. But that's like telling women who are dressed retardedly out in public that is cause for them to be harmed. As much as, no, maybe their ego should be deflated a little bit. Maybe they should be told something about what they're, don't touch them though. What the fuck are
Yeah.
you touching them for? Like, keep our hands to ourselves, maybe.
Hey,
That right.
you're right. No, no, and I agree with you wholeheartedly because um, it's actually kind of funny. I did have a discussion with someone on Facebook, and you can watch that. I had it on what was it, yesterday and Tuesday as well, and that subject did come up. The idea of what happens if a woman's drunk, or if the woman is is provocatively dressed. And his idea was that, well, don't get drunk because you kind of did it yourself. And I said, well, I don't know if we could say that for sure. It probably is better not to get drunk in a place that you don't know, that you don't know people, or in a place where maybe you don't have backup, right? But I said that doesn't really excuse the behavior, I mean, on one end. And I don't think he meant, I don't think he was as, for lack of a better word, I don't think he was as adamant about it, because when I was digging deeper, I think he did say that, like, if a woman says no, hey, that's it. So, I mean, in case you decide to watch it, I don't want to disparage him entirely. I mean, I didn't quite agree with that, but I think overall he was right about the fact that, I mean, he agreed with the fact that, hey, if a woman is telling you no and pushing you away and things like that, um you should really kind of back off and say, look, we don't care, like how intoxicated she is or how much fun she's having, and blah 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 blah. The best thing that you can do is just kind of back off and make sure you get her consent in one way or another, because without consent, it is, I mean, essentially it is sexual assault. It really is.
Yeah.
So it's really important, to think that way, because one thing I always tell people about those concepts that they give out, for example, when they talk about the provocative dressing, for example, I think on some level that's kind of to say that, well, if a woman's dressed provocatively, she should, oh, she brought it on herself. I think that's insulting in two ways. Obviously the first way is being that, no, somebody shouldn't be sexually assaulted just because she's got a short or tight skirt on or something like that, right? But the other half is that it's almost saying that, like, well, men are basically a bunch of mindless horn dogs and they can't control themselves, so women shouldn't do that. And I'm kind of thinking, okay, look, I'm I'm not gonna, I have control over myself. I can
Right.
exercise my own power. I can, I can. When a woman says no, I can back off. Um, and I don't know how explicit we get on the broadcast here, but I'll just say this because it's appropriate. But I mean, I was going at it with a woman one time, and she wanted me to stop right in the middle of it. We're talking the act itself. We're not,
Man,
we're not flirting. We're not, I mean,
y'all
we're
are
not,
in the moment,
yeah,
engaged,
we are in the moment. And
doing the
she's telling me,
sideways tango.
she's, she's telling me to stop. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was hard to just stand up and get off and everything else, but that wasn't an easy thing to do. But I mean, I had the control of myself to be able to do that. I didn't just say, "Oh no, no, we're gonna keep going." But when I took a step back and I chatted with her a little bit and you know tried to find out, hey, did I harm you? Did I trigger you? Did something happen? Something I said, something I did. You
Communication.
know, right? She kind of sat back and she explained it to me, and then we went at it again, and
Hey,
got to finish it. Got to finish this time, and then
my
got to go
man.
at it a second time in the morning. so I mean, it's something that men can, men can control themselves, and I think it's insulting on both sides to say that men can't control themselves, so women should not do X, Y, and Z, and they should just expect to have these things happen to them, because that's asinine, to say the least. um like I said, on one end with the woman, because no, she doesn't deserve to be assaulted, sexually assaulted, because she's wearing something that that's revealing. Let's just say it's revealing, and a guy can control himself. All he has to do is say, okay, look, I'll walk away. I'll handle this myself later. So if it really comes to that. So um yeah, that's a big thing that you mentioned there. That's definitely a big thing.
Um, and on this note, I want to go ahead. I put this in the shared screen for people. This is one of Irvin's channels, Tiger Crane SCV. This is more child friendly, but just wanted to kind of show you guys a little bit of what he's been doing. I don't have the audio on because we don't want any copyright strikes, but here you can see him just kind of going through some movements with a female student, and in real time, people will say, and I showed this specifically, people will say, well, you're a black business, and why are you teaching them people? And, what are you doing? And you're helping the enemy. Irvin, what are you doing? And it's like, I want
Yeah,
us
yeah.
to get our money. I want us to get paid. If you're good at what you do and then people want to pay you to do what you do, then you should go collect. So shout out to you for being able to migrate across different environments, because that's a ninja skill that we should be able to pick up on and use. But in real time, people try to keep us away from the resources. I know that your business has had many opportunities with your city to show and prove that you are who you say you are. And just any examples of us doing that the same way them other people do it, I want to give credit to and shout out. So the channel that I just showed you, Tiger Crane SCV, that is more for the babies, or at least more child friendly. It might pop up on your kids' YouTube, and that should be fine. They should know that we've got responsible, competent black men out here who want them to be safe too. And just as a shameless plug, because this is my channel and I have something for the minis as well. Shout out to Isla, she's in the chat.
Supplemental learning for your mini. But you can learn too. Don't send your mini into the belly of the beast unarmed. Courses, practical math, language, the code, our story, and more. An institution founded by us, dedicated to us and our fight for justice. Here you will learn ways to combat the system using the same information they are trying to keep away from you. Welcome to FBA Sunday School.
And that is just one of our channels that we do for the minis. I think that it's important to impress these skills and learning on the next generation so that we don't have a group of soft targets running around here. You can't have little girls wanting to go running at 5 o'clock in the morning, even though that's the best time on their schedule if they're not prepared. So I definitely want to make sure that people know that you're not just for the adults, you've got stuff for the whole family, really. And then inside of that, you are a Black-owned business who is out here doing the damn thing. For Black Media Appreciation Month, for the people who have been listening all month, you guys know that I really wanted to hit the 9 areas of people activity as prescribed by Mr. Neely Fuller. And, we're not a monolith. I hate that. I fucking hate that, because I do think that we need pillars in our community. I think we need staples and traditions, but we're not the same, which is that's really the conversation people should be having, that Black people are not all the same. We don't do things the same way, as much as we should have some values that are constant. Protecting our shit should be as foundational as Black Americans, goddammit. And
right.
I can, look in our story and see that not protecting ourselves and not protecting our stuff has been detrimental to our advancement as a people. So, again, I'm happy at the timeliness of this conversation. I'd love to have you back. I'd love to have you on my other channel, Millennials Adulting, because you are in that age range of the adults in the room now trying to.
That's right. Yeah. I am definitely a millennial, 1986. So
we right there, neck and neck.
See.
Another thing that I wanted to remind people inside of the self-defense thing, people will say, oh, why are you trying to be like them Asians, right? Have you heard that before? They stereotype
yes.
with other people. And you guys look,
yeah.
This, over the weekend, our oldest Minnie, who just turned 12, she performed with her drum circle, and there were other performances. Check this one out.
Love it.
Yeah, Mighty, he's he's getting it right. No, in real time, he's watching the people do the moves, and he was feeling it. I don't know if he was feeling drums, if he was feeling the motions, or just the energy, but I love that, and I'm glad that I was able to catch that on camera for you guys, because karate, self-defense, kung fu, whatever you want to call it, that's ours. It's not theirs, it's ours. So people like Irvin have to be highlighted, especially in a month where we're talking about media and how we get our information, because in real time, they will tell you that, oh, if you're not Asian, or if you're not Chinese, or whatever, then you can't do that thing. Irvin, have you heard that? Do you know any of our story with regards to antiquity and karate, kung fu, or anything like that?
Primarily, what I do know is that when it came to the States, little history lesson here, but when it came to the States, it actually came mostly from people who had fought overseas, World War II being the pinnacle. Because in the early days of American martial arts, if you want to call it that, the only 2 martial arts that were really working was was actually boxing and wrestling. And boxing came in with the Marquess of Queensberry rules because they had this thing called prize fighting, which was just unlimited rounds, unlimited rules. If you've ever seen the movie Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr., and there's a scene where he's fighting in that little wooden area, that one guy. Anyway, that was prize fighting. And so they took that and it became boxing. And boxing, and by Marquess of Queensberry rules, I mean the rounds, the gloves, the conditioning, all that stuff, rules. And obviously we started out with like Jack Johnson, who just mopped the floor with a lot of people at that time. You had Joe Louis come in later. You had all these people. And then, of course, in the 1940s, people started coming in with because of World War II, they started coming in with karate and judo. So the Eastern martial arts became big during that time. And they were introduced and people knew them, but they weren't real popular until the Bruce Lee craze of the 1970s. And that's when things really just took off. But I say that history as we bring into it, we adopted so much of that and created a culture around it, not just in the art itself, but just like everywhere. Like we were getting it on film. We had we had Jim Kelly, we had who was a real martial artist. We had Michael Jai White, who's still alive, great martial artist, fantastic. I've actually been to one of Michael Jai White's classes. I mean, the guy's amazing at his age. I mean, he's pushing 60, and the guy doesn't look a day over 40, and he the way he hits and kicks and everything. I mean, he doesn't look a day over 20. So I mean, he's ridiculous, and I guess the big thing about it was that we took it, and I just noticed that a lot of the Black Americans, they created a whole culture around it. And I have an Asian friend of mine whose parents actually grew up in the Bruce Lee era, this and that. And in a nutshell, Black people in America were the ones who made martial arts popular. Okay,
that's so real, Irvin. That we got to be able to claim that as part of our story too. Just the ability to make some shit pop. That's Black American culture.
That was our thing. And looking at Black Americans who train martial arts, and who've been around since like the 70s and whatnot, they always learn the basics, but then they evolve it, and it becomes something so different that people are just drawn to it. I mean, to this day, even for me, I mean, I have I don't think I mentioned my background, but I'll just go over the list real quick. But my background is in Kung Fu, Western boxing, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, and kickboxing, which is actually the Chinese style kickboxing. Which, if you're unfamiliar with that, it's called Sanda. It's basically a combination of kickboxing with throwing, so kickboxing and wrestling, and then close quarters combat or combatives, which is what I teach my self-defense students. And it's interesting because even though I've trained all those systems over the years, what I've seen as a whole is that these systems, there's so much overlap. And so I would teach a Kung Fu move, but just by changing the hand position, it would be a Kung Fu move, but you would throw it like a boxer. And having worked with like Muay Thai kickboxers, MMA fighters, and everybody else, they're looking at me like, what is this guy doing? Like, he's moving like a boxer, but I mean a kickboxer, but he's throwing different types of moves out there. He's not throwing the same types of moves. So even for myself, I tell people, I said, I train like a boxer, kickboxer, but I fight like a street fighter. and so when I do the same with my students. I train them to train like a boxer, but fight like a street fighter, because when you look at everything, everything has something to offer, but at least in my experience, the conditioning, the working out, everything like we talked about earlier, that, I mean, boxing pretty much can't beat that. The wrestling, judo stuff, it's good to know as well, but the conditioning isn't nearly the same by comparison. At least not in the conventional sense. But I say all that to say that, I took what I learned and I made it mine. And by making it mine, I turned around and I'm teaching it now, and people are just blown away. And, I got to a point, funny thing, I got to a point where I had a local MMA fighter who I used to train with, got really jealous and just started, running his mouth online. Of course, he didn't have that same energy in person.
I read about that.
Yep, that's right.
Is crickets in person? Is that? Did I read that right?
Yeah, it's crickets in person. I mean, and this guy's, and understand, he's no pushover. Every person I've talked to, who's worked with him, he has a whole fight team at his school. They've all said, man, he's one of the toughest MMA fighters we've ever seen. But for some reason, when he sees me, he's backing off. And he had the history of going after other instructors in person. But when it came to me, he said, okay.
Look, that is so close to home. You don't know that this happened. So I apologize if this makes you uncomfortable, but I feel like we're close enough, Irvin. I can tell you some things. Man, in real time, the authority meets my man, and it's crickets. This person is supposed to be loud and in charge, and the authority just had no words in real time. And I'm to this day, it still baffles me that people can have such bravado and then in person be very meek. And it's like the internet has given people this mask of invincibility, and then in real time you can catch these hands, right? No, not hands.
Right.
No, you can just pick me up and throw me in a van. But other people, men especially, I think they understand the severity of an in-person conflict versus just keyboard warrioring or just talking shit like I'm talking shit right now on the mic. That's easy. You can come see me, I guess, if you want.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely true. I mean, I have a general rule. I tell people, I say, I will never say online something I wouldn't say in person.
Amen to that. Say it again for the audience, Irvin.
I will never say something online that I wouldn't say in person. I mean, that's just facts.
That's got to be a foundational thing that we pass on to the younger generation. That if you can't back it up, maybe just don't say it. Just
it really
words up, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right, because because being who I am in my city, people know me because I'm putting myself out there constantly. And before this MMA fighter, I had another guy who was big mouthed online, and he kept saying, yeah, I'll come see you, this and that, and I'll come find you. You have no idea. I said, dude, I'm not hiding. I'm not like, here's my website. You can go to my website, look at the times that I'm there teaching, and you can come by and everything else. And he was just kind of going off the deep end. I mean, he was just saying some outlandish stuff like, I'm going to come after your family, this and that. And this was a local guy. I should emphasize that, but I just said, listen, man, I'll tell you what. I said to him, why don't you come down to the studio? You can come during a time when I'll cancel class. We'll put on the gloves, we'll put on the headgear, we'll put on the mouthpiece because, I don't want anybody seriously injured. Sign the waiver, and we'll have three-minute rounds of boxing. I said, I will not kick you. I will not put you on the ground. I won't throw you. I won't choke you. I won't do any of that. I will only use my hands because you can't tell someone, well, that's not fair. You were using your hand. It's like, you should know how to throw hands. Everybody should know how to throw hands.
No, I'll fight you like this. Let me.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, hey, I don't want you saying, oh, he was kicking, he was taking me down, he was wrestling. I'm like, hey, dude, I won't even kick, and I'll even bring a referee in to make sure things don't get out of control. Oh, he tucked tail and ran after that. All that bravado, like you said, it was gone. And I said, gee, he was so certain. He was saying all sorts of outlandish things. He was saying, I'll wrap circles around you and you won't even know what's happening. And I said, hey, man, come prove it to me.
Right?
Here's my website. Here's the address to the school is on the page. Just come down, send me just say, hey, listen, I'm free this day, that time. I will set it up for you. I'm self-employed. I don't have to ask for a day off. So
hey,
I'm like
saying it with your chest.
Yeah.
Like that.
So I just say, hey, neither one of us have to get in trouble, and we can go as hard as you want to go. We don't have to worry about laws.
I would love for our community to do that, to take it back to the olden days, like when we had scuffles or spats, you fought and then you lived to fight another day. It wasn't like you got shot in the front or in the back or whatever, somebody's trying to take you out permanently. No, y'all men had a disagreement or whatever, and then you handle it like men, I guess, would handle things. And then, because at the end of the day, if you can't talk because somebody done in the mouth, now your mouth's all swole up, then maybe you need to go home and reflect on the things that and not even, that might not even be that person was supposed to win as much as maybe you should have handled it differently. This arena wasn't going to be beneficial for you, but you talk too much, and now this is where you are with your mouth all swollen. You get staples and a whole bunch of other stuff. Man.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. If we take it back to those days, there'd be a lot less talk going on.
I'm down to help sponsor celebrity boxing matches for our community. When I see these Twitter beefs online and people are all, oh, I'm gonna dox you or I got doxed or all that shit. No, look, man, hit me up. I will hit up Irvin. We will get a dojo space, sell some tickets. Like, let's do this for real. And then the pot, why can't we do things for us, by us? In all the different environments. Like, it doesn't just have to be that, we go on a party. No, people are social, and the Coliseums were created because people like to watch blood and guts and fights and stuff. Like, let's go right into that, right? Like, we can use that responsibly.
Right. We can make it we can make it a day, because I've done, I don't know if I didn't mention this, but I've done training from a virtual standpoint. One of this guy I went to high school with, who I'm really good friends with. He's a Jewish guy, but he's also in the Army. And funny thing, after the insurrection of 2021, he had to station. He's got stationed there, right in the midst of it. And first thing he told me was, look, man, I know how to shoot a gun, but I need your help on that hand-to-hand stuff. And and what's interesting, I spent few weeks before he left, working on hand-to-hand stuff virtually, because he stays in another state out east. And so I was just like, hey, we could do that. And, and I've been, I've really been wanting that for the family, to be honest. I mean, it's been a little harder to get them, you know, coming in and really pushing because I've also, aside from everything that I do, I've also created the Black Business Alliance in my city. And I created that in 2020. And we're just now getting traction, and getting things forward. And what's interesting is that I've introduced them to much of the Black media that we have now, the new Black media that is, and things like that. But which, by the way, I'm going to share our conversation with them as well, because it's a private group. It's I think right now we have about 100 members. They're all business owners, and we didn't even know we were out here like this. I mean, we only represent, I think, 4% of this population out here, but wow, we got doctors, lawyers, business owners. I mean, you name it, we got it. Dentists. I'm just like, gosh, where y'all been at? I've been out here for the last 20 years. I'm like, I ain't seen none of y'all.
Man,
so
under a rock.
it's really good because we're getting new. We're getting, it's starting to make traction. I didn't want to give up on it because I knew it was going to be slow. I know that I don't want to disparage the chapter, but I don't like the organization very much because I think it's too broad. But I think you know what I'm going to be bringing up. The NAACP came out here and they made a chapter in our city. Now, I know a lot of the people on the board, and there's some legitimate people who do want to work, but I think they're still in the, people of color, minority, that type of mindset, Black and brown type of mindset. And, it's interesting because I know all these minorities. I put this in quotes because I know that they don't, Tariq says it himself. He says they don't even consider themselves minorities, and they don't. They really don't. And I have a very close friend of mine who's Latina, and I asked her. I said, "Is there such thing as a she's immersed in the culture, everything, not even born here, born in Mexico, the whole nine." I asked her. I said, "Is there such thing as a Black and brown coalition?" She's like, "No." I mean, she's like, no. She says, "Hey, you know what? I respect the Black community. I love the Black community, everything else, but no, we don't have that." So the NAACP chapter people, they're kind of on that tip, and I'm competing with them. You know what I mean? And so people are slowly migrating towards me because they're having a lot of problems over there. So they're like, okay.
Right.
This is Black only. This is behind the scenes. It's private. It's not public. It's, because I don't want to get too many people in there to mess up the energy too quickly. You know what I mean? And I figure once we have control over everything, we can start to assign people and assign, people in charge who I trust, who I know are thinking on the same page. You mentioned earlier, you see my clients, that a lot of them are non-Black. And, me and my moderator, we have a saying: buy Black, sell to everyone else, because money's free.
2 thumbs. If I had more thumbs, I would give them to you. Absolutely.
So we're just like, we buy amongst each other. I introduce people. I try to get people connected. But at the same time, we're like, hey, look, we got to sell to everybody because money's green. And that's where our power comes from. And as much as I'd like to get more, granted, I want to help more Black people. Don't get me wrong. I definitely do. But I also realize that, hey, if you limit your dollars to one group of people, you gotta work with everybody. You gotta work with everybody. So it's a big deal, It's big.
I mean, that's real. In real time, people get mad when they find out that their favorite historian or documentarian used a white cameraman, or like when Tariq, he has Mink Slide, right? And then the guitarist is not Black, right? And then people are like, oh, they're up in arms and stuff. And I'm like, talent is talent. And then, if if you're not in control of it, then you won't even be able to spin the story. So that's a big piece that people keep leaving out, is that, when we own and control our stuff, why can't you hire whoever the fuck you want to hire? Because that's the job is there and you want the best to do it. But, I also understand that you want to circulate that black dollar too. And right now we don't have control over the resources. So I find it very strange that people want us to act like the dominant society, but we don't actually have control like the dominant society. So until we get there, I think definitely
Yeah,
move
no,
on.
I agree. I mean, we've got to have full control. And I think I'm not sure if it was Dr. Boyce Watkins. I know he's been kind of iffy lately, but his I think he had a quote. He said, you know, don't send your kids to those establishments and then beg for jobs. It says create your own jobs. Even if you do send them to establishment, don't come back and say, okay, now I want to work for you guys. Come back and say, hey, how do you create a job? How do you put things in there? I just created, I just started expanding my business, and now I'm going to be teaching after school programs. And,
Look at that.
and it's fantastic because now I get to do it at the schools. I get to do what I love. But the other half of it is that now I get to hire my family members to work for me, and I get to pay them a salary. You know what I mean? And to me, that's powerful because
that is extremely powerful, Irvin. Man, that is circulating the black dollar.
Exactly.
So we have to account for our wins, every single one of them, because they will never do that. And then, keep pushing. The work doesn't stop. Because if we don't fight back, they will take our shit. And I'm so over giving away what's ours that, we do have to take a page out of their book. They sell to us. They don't buy from us, but they do sell to us all the time.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. That's why I say we need to get out there and get it. I don't know if I know it's a little bit ways off, but August is Black Business Month. And, I try to highlight a lot of Black businesses, also some people who are in the, who are part of the movement and everything. And last year didn't work out so well, but hopefully this year I can get some more of us out here.
Yeah, definitely keep in touch. Obviously,
of course,
I try to keep my platform as transparent as I've been. I want us to win, and conversations like this, I think, move the needle, even if just a little bit. So, Irvin, before we leave tonight, please let the people know where they can find you. I saw Isla in the chat. She already started sharing your channel in the chat for them. So that is there. But let them know where they can find you. If they can send you an email to see if they can get started with some sort of consult, do your thing.
Oh, thank you very much, Eve. Yes. You can find me at tigercranescv.com. Tiger Crane, just as it sounds. Tiger, the animal, crane, the bird. And SCV is where I live, Santa Clarita Valley.com. You can find that page. You can also find Tiger Crane SCV on IG, Instagram. You can find it on Facebook. And my information should be on the website. It's on the website. You can contact me. I do virtual lessons, that type of thing. So if you want to get started or learn a few things, come through. Follow my YouTube channel, Tiger Crane SCV. You can also follow my YouTube channel, the Self-Defense Company Santa Clarita, or the Self-Defense Company SCV. That one is going to really teach you about self-defense. Thank you, Eve. Thank you. Yes, that's the one there. It's really going to teach you about a lot of the things about self-defense that is not child friendly. So, yes, so make sure your children are the very least responsible enough not to, practice that stuff on their friends. But the very least. But yes, those are the places you can find me. You can find me any one of those channels, any with the website, everything. I always answer emails, everything. So I am there, and I'll always get back to you. I'll always get back to you.
If you weren't here earlier in the program, he referenced a few different times where people in real time needed him, and he's like, boom, I'm right there, I got you. So I will say that he's been transparent about his availability, but don't just think that he's got time. No, this man is out here trying to keep us safe in a bunch of different ways. And if you can, or if you want, hit him up, because I think that this is something we need as a Black community, more options for keeping each other safe. We don't want soft targets. We don't want people thinking that they can't do anything. And Tia, shout out to you in the chat, because I've been over here laughing for a good 5 minutes when I read that you don't have the focus for karate, but you got crazy. And look, man, that if you don't got anything, that might be where you want to be, Tia. So thank you for, your honesty and your conversation in the chat tonight. I really like it. To the room, thank y'all for joining us tonight. I try to do this a couple times a week. Join me on Wednesday with Dr. Winters. Join me on Monday with Marie on Millennials Adulting, and on Fridays, well, sometimes I'm here by myself, and sometimes I'll be joined by a very special guest like we have today. Irvin, thank you again for joining us tonight, and y'all have a good evening.
All right. Thank you again.
Everybody. It's Eve. Follow me on Twitter and YouTube for space recordings and special live programs. 2024, we're doing things a little different if you haven't peeped game by now. So yeah, this is your chance. You can do it now if you want. Hit the bell here on YouTube at JustEveB, or find me on X at Justice4Just_Us. That's JUSTICE, 4 JUST_US. And if you feel so inclined, support my channel and the work we do over here. The Cash App and Patreon links are in the description. Black first.